Alec McKinney was sentenced to life in prison in July 2020 for being involved in a high school mass shooting in Castle Rock, Colorado in May 2019. McKinney was born female, originally named Maya, and identifies as a man, or at least did at the time of the shooting. There was one news report that mentioned that while waiting for sentencing, McKinney was placed in a boys' juvenile facility in a separate cell. But there's no information on what prison McKinney was finally sentenced to, or whether that's a men's prison or a women's prison. The Federal Bureau of Prisons inmate search for both Alec McKinney and Maya McKinney yields 0 results. The Colorado State Prison Inmate Locator has been unavailable for months. On a related note, the Washington State chapter of the ACLU is suing a woman who is requesting records on the number of trans-identified inmates of either sex in prisons designated for their opposite sex. Women's Liberation Front is countersuing the ACLU for blocking that information, which Women's Liberation Front argues should be public record. The ACLU might have a case in that whether an inmate is trans might be private information. Women's Liberation Front has lawyers, and obviously they believe trans status or biological sex should be public information, or is public information. Either way, if you know the name of a specific inmate, you should be able to locate that inmate, and that's not been the case with McKinney. I'll put the address and phone number for the Colorado Department of Corrections and the Federal Bureau of Prisons in the description for anybody who wants to contact them to ask where McKinney is. If trans-identified female inmates are being placed in women's prisons for their safety, that would be a pretty strong case against placing male inmates, especially ones with violent crime records, in women's prisons. If trans-identified natally female inmates are being placed in men's prisons, I'd like to know how they're doing, and groups like the ACLU and Human Rights Campaign and Amnesty International should care about that as well, though I haven't seen any indication that they do care about that. If natally female trans inmates are being placed in separate areas in men's prisons, one of the favorite arguments against doing this same thing with trans-identified male inmates is that it's virtual solitary confinement. So is that being done with female-to-male trans inmates? And if so, why is that not equally problematic as it is with natally male trans inmates in men's prisons?